I just ate 5 big burritos from Taco Bell. Do you think I can pull off an hour of Kamen Rider retrospective without using the restroom and having bubble guts? Then let's see. What up, YouTube? It's your boy Fatal J. Back like I left something and I'm glad you're here. Yes, I'm glad you're here. And a friend of mine been recommending me, Fatal J, you have to watch the History of Kamen Rider video. And shout out to my guy who made the video. You did an absolutely dope job. We about to get into this reaction. I'm supposed to quit all this talking, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not doing no talking. All I'm asking for you, if you want to support Fatal J, then check out that Patreon. Link is in the description. And I'm not going to be doing all this talking. Matter of fact, talking is over. Let's get into it right here, right now.
Why is Kamen Rider so legendary? From 1971's original Kamen Rider series to 2024's Kamen Rider Gav, the Kamen Rider franchise has built an incredible legacy and a rich history within Japan and throughout the entire world.
I agree. Geeks.
This video will cover every single Kamen Rider series throughout history, as well as other major milestones in the franchise like movies, games, and even American adaptations.
Oh, this is going to be
so
dope.
So if you want a video that you can show to people who don't know what Kamen Rider is, or if you just want to take an entertaining walk with me through the complete history of this legendary
Let's take a journey,
franchise, this is the video for you.
Okay. Oh, this is going to be good. That's gotcha.
To tell the story of the Kamen Rider franchise, we first have to go all the way back to 1938, where a young child named Shotaro Onodera was born in the town of Tome in Miyagi Prefecture, Japan. Shotaro would take on the name Ishinomori, and he showed a lot of creativity and a talent for creating characters from a young age. He showcased his abilities in various manga competitions throughout his childhood before he would eventually create a character named Skullman that would, of course, go on to become Kamen Rider.
Oh, tight.
Kamen Rider is perhaps best known for featuring young adult men that become cyborgs and transform into armored superheroes with a theme of grasshoppers and other insects.
Yeah, grasshoppers.
Although this has loosened up a lot over time, and in the modern age, not all series feature this bug theme. In fact, most don't. There are 3 eras of Kamen Rider, and these coincide with the eras of Japan's history. These eras are known as the Showa era, spanning from 1926 to 1989, the Heisei era, spanning from 1989 to 2019, in the Reiwa era, which spans from 2019 through the present day.
And that's a dope era, too. Because I know that last era, I want to say 01 started that era, the last
In 1971, Kamen Rider was born with the iconic original series, starring 2 main protagonists in Takeshi and Hayato, as they would take on Shocker and later Gel Shocker. Unlike modern-day seasons of Kamen Rider, this series ran for a whopping 98 episodes. And we would start with the story of Takeshi Hongo, a college student who was turned into a cyborg by Shocker, but they were unable to fully convert his mind, and he would rebel and battle against them.
That's what I'm talking about, rebel, brother.
While filming a motorcycle stunt, Takeshi Hongo's actor Hiroshi Fujioka was injured and had to be replaced. They would replace him by Hayato Ichimonji, played by Takeshi Sasaki, and eventually they would join forces together, becoming the iconic Double Riders.
Oh, that's how the Double Rider started.
The series set iconic tropes, such as Kamen Rider being a cyborg fighting an evil organization, and of course his preferred method of transportation, his rider machine cycle. To say that the series was iconic and legendary would be a huge understatement. Kamen Rider V3! In 1973, Toei would follow up the success of Kamen Rider with Kamen Rider V3, a direct sequel, featuring returning characters from Kamen Rider.
Look at the graphics back then. The graphics was fire. I don't care what you say. Those graphics were impressive for back in the day.
Wants to be a cyborg in order to avenge his family that he saw being killed by Destron. He becomes mortally wounded while risking his life to protect the Double Riders. So in return, they turn him into Kamen Rider V3.
Kamen Rider
V3.
This series features Joji Yuki, also known as Rider Man, played by Takahisa Yamaguchi, who has one of the most unique rider suit designs in the franchise, being that his mouth is exposed through his helmet.
That's fast. You're right. The only one like that.
Our protagonist, Shiro, is played by Hiroshi Miyauchi, who also played Owl Ranger in Go Ranger, Big One in Jaka, and Chief Counselor Naoyuki Miura.
Dang, he got a lot of titles to his
multiple
belt.
seasons of the Metal Hero franchise.
Oh,
this guy
Metal
is a
Hero
legend. As far as V3 suit design, it was a natural evolution from the looks of the Double Riders, featuring more red and a slightly more detailed design.
Kamen Rider X.
1974 was the year of Kamen Rider
still
X,
wasn't born
where our
yet.
main protagonist Keisuke and his father were betrayed by Keisuke's fiancée in order to assist God, the government of darkness, leading Keisuke and his father to become mortally wounded. Keisuke's father, who was a robotics expert, turned Keisuke into a Kaizorg, also known as X-Rider or Kamen Rider X, in order to save his life.
Dope henchman too.
In this series, Keisuke starts as an easygoing character with the optimism of somebody that's
look
about
at the
to
bike
get
there.
married.
I
But
love
all
it.
that is ripped away from him, and he turns into a machine of pure precision and focus. His helmet is meant to look like a skull, and his helmet definitely has a look that calls back to the Skullman manga created by Shotaro Ishinomori.
That's fact.
Due to competition from anime on TV at the time, the show had lower ratings than the studio had hoped, and it only lasted 35 episodes.
35 is still long though.
Also in 1974, we had Kamen Rider Amazon. This is the shortest Kamen Rider series ever and one of the most violent. This show follows Daisuke, who was lost in the Amazon as a child. He was raised by wild animals before eventually being adopted by
that boy like a modern day Mowgli.
Nearly his entire village would be killed by Golgos, but not before an elder in the tribe performs a ritual to give him the power to become Kamen Rider Amazon. This was an incredibly iconic and unique new look for Kamen Rider, with a helmet design and a suit design that had never been seen before.
Yeah,
this was the first rider to not use a belt to henshin, and the first Kamen Rider series since the original to not have any previous riders returning. This is also the very last main Kamen Rider series that did not have a Sentai season air alongside it.
Oh, that's pretty interesting though.
1975 saw the release of Kamen Rider Stronger, which was originally planned to be the
I still wasn't born yet.
Series. This show follows Shigeru Joe, whose best friend and mentor Goro is killed by Black Satan. Because of this, Shigeru lets himself get turned into a cyborg or Kamen Rider Stronger.
That's tight.
Kuriko, also known as Electronic Wave Humanoid Tackle or Denpa Ningen Tekud, who is also a cyborg created by Black Satan.
The ladybug.
And together they would battle Black Satan and later the Delzer Army. Electronic Wave Humanoid Tackle isn't technically a Kamen Rider, but she definitely has the look of one, especially the ones from the early Showa era, and she is bug-themed, with Tackle's motif being a ladybug, and she was even created by Black Satan in the same way as Stronger. Unfortunately, the actress Kyoko Okada, who played Electronic Wave Humanoid Tackle, passed away at the age of 27 due to asthma attack. Shigeru was played by Shigeru Araki, who also passed away in 2012 of pneumonia.
Dang. Crazy.
This was meant to be called Kamen Rider Spark, but that was trademarked in Japan. However, this would have been a really fitting name due to the show's focus on electricity. And this was the very first Kamen Rider series to have a temporary power-up for the main rider, that being Stronger's charge-up form. 4 whole years later, the Kamen Rider fandom would be introduced to Sky Rider.
I've never seen this
meant
one, Sky
to be a
Rider.
reboot of the original Kamen Rider series after the franchise had been off of TV for 4 whole
years.
A
reboot.
Hence the name and similar suit
4
design
years
to
hiatus?
Kamen
That's a
Rider
long
Ichigo.
time.
This show would revisit classic themes and tropes from the first 2 Kamen Rider series.
Look at him flying. That's tight.
In Sky Rider, we follow Hiroshi Tsukuba as he battles Neo Shocker. Eventually, the idea of this being a reboot was spaced out over time, and classic Kamen Riders would appear, tying this into the continuity of the rest of the era. With a name like Sky Rider, this series was very focused on flight. However, this was also phased out over time, and as far as I can tell, this was because Shotaro Ishinomori was unhappy with the flight special effects, i.e. he didn't like how it looked when Sky Rider was flying around.
The flights look dope, though. Man, you could only go so far back then in the 70s, bro.
In 1980, we were introduced to Kamen Rider Super 1. Our protagonist, Kazuya, volunteers for cybernetic surgery in the International Space Development Program in the United States, so he can be an astronaut who doesn't need a spacesuit to survive in space. Unfortunately, before he can make it to space, the base where his operation is being performed is attacked by the Dogma Kingdom, with everyone else being killed.
That's a dope henshin.
He goes to Japan and is trained by a martial arts expert named Master Ginkai, who teaches him how to henshin into Super 1. This show featured multiple types of interchangeable hands with different strengths and elements, and this functioned as a prototype version of the form switching that we see today.
Form switching, okay. That's where it started from this show. Okay, tight.
In 1984, Toei released a one-off special titled Birth of the 10th Kamen Riders All Together, and this was the introduction of Ryo Murasame, also known as Kamen Rider Z-Cross. Ryo was a pilot who was attacked by a UFO while with his sister before being kidnapped by the Badan Empire, who turned him into Z-Cross. With his memory erased, he does their bidding before quickly regaining his memory and escaping. He learns of the other riders that came before him, and they would team up together. Although this is only a special, Z-Cross is considered the 10th rider and often represented as a season retroactive.
I want to see that.
This special marks the final unhinged appearance of Shiro Kazumi, also known as Kamen Rider V3, Joji Yuki, also known as Riderman, and Kazuya Oki, also known as Kamen Rider Super 1.
Wow. I love team-ups and crossovers.
1987 saw the release of one of the most popular and loved series in the history of the Kamen Rider franchise in Kamen Rider Black. This is a legendary entry marked by a dark tone, a gritty look, and a very emotional story. This show is a drama in the fullest sense. Black introduces us to Kotaro Minami, who is portrayed masterfully by Tetsuo Kurata, and he delivers a heavy and impactful performance where you're going to feel the agony that he feels during his fight against Shadow Moon and the Gorgon.
Yeah.
It was around this time that the look of Kamen Riders in general started to change a little bit.
Yeah.
The helmets became a little less bulky, and the armor started looking a little more like armor instead of cloth.
Yeah.
The aesthetics here and the tone would remain influential to future iterations of Kamen Rider for years to come.
This show definitely set the tone. I just seen a few episodes. It set the tone, man.
In 1988, after the success of Kamen Rider Black, the executives at Toei agreed to go ahead with a sequel entitled Kamen Rider Black RX.
This is the one Saban took to the States.
Kotaro returns, and he refuses an offer to join the
He tried to make it big, but it wasn't big.
He's thrown into the sun, where he would become Kamen Rider Black RX.
One of my favorite Kamen Rider suits, man.
This show is notable for featuring Rider-On, which was a red car instead of Kamen Rider's signature motorcycle. And this was also the first show to introduce form switching into the franchise officially.
Tight. These monsters looked crazy in this one too,
1992 was an absolutely packed year for the Kamen Rider franchise, featuring Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, a film celebrating the 20th anniversary of the franchise. Because this was 20 years later, this film was meant to attract fans of the original series that had now grown into adults, and that's why the film was a lot darker and more violent.
That's how you should do
it.
The
protagonist here is Shin Kazamatsuri, who is fused with grasshopper DNA against his will leading him to fight against the Institute of Super Science, or
dope.
ISS. Shotaro Ishinomori originally planned for him to be called Kamen Rider Gaia with a more traditional look, but later on they changed this to Kamen Rider Shin and gave him a suit that was more biological and insect-like. Ishinomori himself even appears in this movie as a spy.
Man, that's creepy. But I love it.
Also in 1993, we had the release of Kamen Rider on the Super Famicom.
That's tight.
This was a game based on the original Kamen Rider series, released 20 years after the show that it's based on.
I wish I could play that, man.
It was a beat-em-up style game, allowing 2 players to play as Kamen Rider Ichigo and Nigo, respectively. This game made it possible for a new generation to experience the universe of the original Kamen Rider series, and you can even play it with a friend.
How can you not like that?
Rounding out a huge 1993 was Ultraman vs. Kamen Rider, a TV special featuring mini clips and interviews with the people involved from both shows, where we have Kamen Rider growing into a giant to fight alongside Ultraman.
Now, how can you not like that?
This was a small project, but fans in 1993 welcomed it, and it kept the spirits of these legendary Toku characters alive and well.
I want to see this so bad. Oh, look at that.
1994 was the year of Kamen Rider J, the first rider to be able to grow into a giant. Koji Segawa is a photographer who is killed while attempting to protect his little sister named Kana. He's thrown over a cliff and Kana is captured. The Earth spirits resurrect Koji, and he becomes Kamen Rider J, who is assisted by his aide Barry. J is played by Yuta Mochizuki, who also played Geki in Zyuranger.
Man, some dope moves. There you go, Masked Rider. This is when I was introduced to Kamen Rider. On Fox Kids.
1995 would live in infamy with Saban's Masked Rider.
Infamy
one of the
indeed.
largest blemishes on the resume of Kamen Rider.
I have traveled a vast distance from the planet
They
Eden.
ruined it, man.
Huh?
After the success of Power Rangers during the 90s, Saban and Toei decided to team up in order to bring Kamen Rider to the English-speaking world. This resulted in what is widely considered to be one of the worst adaptations of all time. This show is about an alien named Dax from planet Edenoi who travels to Earth alongside his companion Furbus, who looks like a giant Furby, and he meets a family who are pretty much devoid of personality and acting skills.
Ecto phase, activate!
They tried to shove Kamen Rider and a family sitcom together, and it just doesn't work.
It didn't
An
work.
unfortunate blemish to the legacy of Kamen Rider in the West.
He danced like Michael Jackson.
1998 saw the release of a Kamen Rider game on a brand new cutting-edge system, the PlayStation,
Yeah.
allowing fans to experience the original Kamen Rider series all over again.
Wow.
This was a fighting game featuring characters and
I've never
locations
seen
that
this
fans
before.
of the original series would be really excited to see. The gameplay was nothing revolutionary here, but this was definitely a noteworthy release in the history of Kamen Rider. 1998 was also a year that would go down as a sad one for Kamen Rider fans, as we lost Shotaro Ishinomori due to heart failure on January 28, 1998.
Oh, man.
It was unclear what would come of the Kamen Rider franchise with the loss of its creator and visionary.
That's crazy, man. All right, we're in a new era. This is a cold era, too.
In 2000, Kamen Rider would return inside of the Heisei era with a new hero, a new legend in Kamen Rider Kuga.
Ooh, that
this was
suit
the
is dope.
first series in 11 years. The main protagonist in Kuga is Yusuke Godai, who finds an ancient artifact that allows him to become Kuga in order to battle the Gyorongi, or unidentified life forms. This was the final Kamen Rider season to feature only a single rider, as every season following Kuga would feature multiple riders.
I always love when they put multiple riders in there.
Kuga would also feature multiple forms that were different color swaps and featured different weapons. And this was also the first season to air alongside a Super Sentai season
Man,
on
I
the
love
same
the big
network,
swords too,
leading
man.
to Superhero Time. In 2001, Toei released a direct sequel to Kuga titled Kamen Rider Agito, and this show features 4 very different riders.
Kamen Rider Agito.
Shoichi becomes Agito, a magic-based rider whose name is Latin for move or keep moving. Makoto becomes G3, a mechanical and technology-based rider who's based off of Kuga and actually puts
Man,
his
that suit is
on.
dope.
Ryo is Gills, a biological rider whose armor actually grows from his body.
Man, how can you not like that?
And Kaoru is the incredibly cool Another Agito. This was the final Kamen Rider season to feature the Ishinomori-style belt design.
Wow.
Also in 2001, the Ishinomori Manga Museum, named after Shotaro Ishinomori,
Man, I'm going to have to check out this series.
in Ishinomaki, Miyagi Prefecture, Japan, to showcase some of the most culturally significant manga in history and to educate people on an art form that Shotaro Ishinomori himself loved so much. Even though Shotaro was gone, his legacy was well remembered, and the franchise he created was headed in an exciting new direction.
That's what I respect about the Japanese. They respect the legacy. Over here, they destroy it every day.
Kamen Rider Yuki, a very popular season, especially amongst fans that enjoy having a lot of riders.
I've been watching a few Ryuki episodes. They tight.
Riders travel to the mirror world,
and they got
and these
to the
riders
States
compete
too.
In the Rider War, a winner-take-all competition where the victor will be granted a single wish. Yuki is known for having a very unique style, and this series has a lot of cool attributes, like being the first season to use cards, and it was also the first season where riders had a device that activates and announces their abilities and attacks.
Henshin!
This was also the first season to feature villain riders. It was around this time that the team at Toei started getting more experimental and creative with
Dark
suit
Riders,
designs, as evidenced by the unique and elaborate helmet designs showcased within Yuki.
That was a great addition to the franchise. The Dark Riders.
Kamen Rider Phase, a show in which Smart Brain Org is trying to take over the world with Orphanox, who are the next stage of human evolution. They create 3 suits called Rider Gear, which are Phase, Delta, and Kaiza. Our main protagonist in this series is Takumi, who along with his allies would fight against Smart Brain to prevent them from replacing the world with Orphanox. Phase brought with it a dark, quality story with excellent acting and explosive action, and 2003 was another great year for Kamen Rider.
It's been pretty consistent so far, except for the Mad Rider.
2004 saw the release of Kamen Rider Blade, a
Kamen
playing
Rider Blade
card-themed season featuring multiple riders that represented different suits from the card deck.
See, I've never seen this before.
Our main protagonist is Kazuma, who becomes Kamen Rider Blade
after
being
seen
ordered,
this,
along with Sakuya, by Board to fight against creatures called Undead. This series featured some really cool riders, including Garen, Chalice, Liango, and of course Blade himself.
I like that 90s style. It's just,
and the second intro looks
nostalgia.
Cool, and you could tell their focus was just on making it look cool for the audience. But the first intro is genuinely hilarious to me, and it's really unique in its weirdness. Kick that napkin. Kick it. This was the first season to have 2 intros since Skyrider. In 2005, Toei released Kamen Rider Hibiki. This show wasn't even originally designed to be a Kamen Rider series.
Wow.
And in pre-production, many different themes were tossed around, including ninjas and yokai. But when Bandai demanded that the Kamen Rider name be attached to the project in order to sell more toys, the original themes would be dropped, and the character would become an Oni-themed Kamen Rider.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that. I wonder what was the original plan for this series.
By episode 29, chief producer Shigenori Taketera was fired, and this was unofficially attributed to low ratings and low toy sales. After the firing, there was a visible tone shift on the show, and it began to resemble a more traditional Kamen Rider series. Hibiki introduced a lot of
you don't never go away from the tradition,
including the fact that there are no belts to Henshin.
That's why the state's going through their stuff with the franchises. Don't change what's dope.
Kamen Rider, the first.
The first.
2005 would continue with Kamen Rider the First. Kamen Rider the First was a modern-day reimagining of Shotaro Ishinomori's classic original series. This movie took some liberties in regards to story, but ultimately serves as a creative and well-made Kamen Rider project
I want to
that
see
shows
that.
a lot of love and respect for the original series.
Wow. It looks great.
2006 was an important year for Kamen Rider, as we would be introduced to the very first HD Kamen Rider series in Kamen Rider Kabuto. The series takes place 7 years after a meteorite hit Shibuya, and shape-shifting creatures known as worms emerged from the disaster. This show added a cast-off feature, giving a unique layer of armor over the rider's base armor.
Man, I love that
fresh
suit.
and new to the franchise.
I agree. It's
this
cool.
show is notable for having a lot of unique riders with varied story arcs. The main protagonist is named Soji. And he's very unique within the franchise due to being extremely arrogant most of the time.
Amazing good.
Kabuto is also very unique due to its food and culinary focus.
And we're going to see that much later in the series too, with the food and all that type of stuff.
2007 would bring with it an absolute cultural phenomenon within Japan in Kamen Rider Den-O. Ryotaro is a huge wimp until he's possessed by the Taros, because they imbue their own personality unto him and even change his non-henshin look. Ryotaro travels with Hana and the Taros through time on the Den Liner to fight against evil Imagins, and they also encounter Kamen Rider Zeronos.
Man,
Takeru
the suits
Sato,
are getting more
who plays
dope.
Ryotaro, claims that the reason for the show's success was the comedic timing. Because the show was so successful, it would lead to a mountain of revenue for Toei and more crossovers than any other Kamen Rider series in history. Following on the heels of Kamen Rider the First, 2007 would continue the anniversary celebration that the first started with the release of Kamen Rider the Next, a reimagining of Kamen Rider V3 with a much darker and more intense tone featuring horror themes. Like the Next, this movie introduced these characters to a new generation.
I want to
put
see
them in
that
an
movie.
Interesting premise set in the Heisei era. Subaraya Productions actually helped with visual effects for this movie, and they are of course known for being the makers of Ultraman.
Man, that look dope. Kamen Rider the Next. I need to write that down.
2008 was the year that Kamen Rider would take on a campy vampire theme with Kamen Rider Kiva. The tagline for this series was "Wake Up, Break the Chains of Destiny." This show takes place across two time frames simultaneously, being 1986 and 2008, allowing the audience to experience the cause and effect of certain story beats.
Wake up, break the chains of destiny.
Our soft-spoken protagonist is Wataru, an introvert who's a human and Fengyre hybrid, and this is actually a huge part of the plot, where we would explore Wataru's family history and his place within the hierarchy of the Fengyre species.
Interesting. The whole building?
This show introduced some really unique elements to the franchise, featuring Wataru's ghostly allies called the Arms Monsters, who provide Kiva with power-ups and live in a building that turns into a dragon. This show also introduced us to Kibat, a bat that bites Wataru's hand to facilitate his henshin. Although Kiva failed to achieve the same levels of success as Den-O, this show introduced fans to some fresh and interesting new things that had never been seen before within the Kamen Rider franchise.
I agree. Very interesting.
Going into 2009, no Rider fan knew just how huge it would end up
Did
being.
my boy just
with
put a
several
champagne
awesome
bottle in his
projects to keep
engine
the
belt?
fan base happy. One of which was Kamen Rider G, a TV special meant to celebrate the 50th anniversary of TV Asahi, as well as promote Kamen Rider Decade. This special followed Goro, a sommelier who henshins into Kamen Rider G
That's a cool
as he
suit.
takes on the organization's shape.
I like the
Kamen Rider
helmet.
G is a wine-themed rider who literally uses a wine bottle and corkscrew to henshin.
That's
and
what I
he
was
even has
thinking.
a sword with a corkscrew attached to it. This special is often overlooked, but it brought the fandom something incredibly unique with a wine-themed rider and was just one part of what would be a great year for Kamen Rider.
Decade.
Oh man, that looks so cool
In
seeing them all
2009,
together.
we of course got Kamen Rider Decade, an anniversary season celebrating 10 years of the Heisei era. This show had two catchphrases. One is connect everything by destroying everything, and Heisei Rider 10 years early. Although the show only had 31 episodes, it was stuffed full of fan service and was focused primarily on making longtime fans happy.
Japanese always do a good job of making their fans happy. Wow.
The show exists amongst the larger Riderverse, where our main protagonist named Tsukasa, also known as the Destroyer of Worlds, henshins into Kamen Rider Decade, and he travels to the universes of other Heisei-era riders as they are converging into one.
That's
he can even henshin into other riders from the Heisei era.
That's cold. That's cold.
Although Decade was a shorter season, the impact of the show was undeniable, as Decade would be featured in many crossover projects over the years. 2009 also brought a huge
All Riders
team-up
versus
movie
Dice Shocker.
in Kamen Rider Decade, All Riders versus Dice Shocker. This project served as the official movie adaptation of Decade that gave the audience some additional context about Tsukasa and featured a team-up of every rider from the history of the franchise up to this point.
Man, that's amazing. Man,
in addition to all of
that's
the
a big
henshin
movie,
riders
man.
throughout history, this movie also featured the nostalgic appearances of Tetsuo Kurata as Kotaro Minami, or Kamen Rider Black, and Toshiki Kashu as Shoichi Sugami, or Kamen Rider Faiz, as well as tons of classic villains from the franchise.
Whoa.
When this movie released in
I need to
theaters,
see this
it
movie.
actually beat Harry Potter in the box office,
Wow.
earning over 2 billion yen,
Whoa.
making it a huge success for Toei commercially and a memorable part of 2009.
I didn't know it was that huge. It beat Harry Potter.
Also in 2009, Kamen Rider would have another chance at winning over Western fans with a
They
new
did better
American
with this one.
adaptation titled Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. Using footage from Kamen Rider Yuki, this show aired on the CW television network during its CW for Kids programming block, but it was ultimately canceled before the final 2 episodes aired on TV.
Kamen Rider.
The CW.
Producer Aki Komine convinced Toei to let him make a pilot for an American adaptation of Kamen Rider in the same style of Power Rangers, and ultimately Ryuki was chosen for the adaptation due to the large quantity of riders and the fact that Ryuki has a female rider. Despite the show's cancellation, Dragon Knight actually won a Daytime Emmy Award for stunt coordination.
Wow.
And it's remembered mostly positively by the community.
Pretty impressive.
There was also a Kamen Rider game released in 2009.
Let's see what this
that
game
would lead
talking
to
about.
Quite a few sequels and spin-offs.
Oh, that game,
Kamen Rider
it looks
Climax
good.
Heroes
PS2.
on PlayStation 2. This was a Kamen Rider fighting game commemorating 10 years of the Heisei era and featuring all of the primary Heisei riders up to this point. This game series has become extremely popular in the fandom, and it was another thing that made 2009 such an awesome year for Kamen Rider. But it wouldn't be the last.
I always call this like the Cowboy
Also
Bebop
releasing
of
in
Kamen Rider.
2009, a fresh take on the Kamen Rider formula, Double is a detective show featuring 2 people that share the same rider body, hence the name Double. The catchphrases for the show were, "We are the 2-in-1 Kamen Rider," and "This clinches it." Kamen Rider Double uses Gaia memory sticks to swap left and right side forms that also provide him with different color combinations. Shotaro is what I like to call a detective's detective. He considers himself hard-boiled, although he gets called half-boiled through a lot of the show, something he's not a huge fan of. He's one stylish dude, and his
I
surname
agree.
Hidari means left, as
got
he becomes
style.
the left side of Double's body. He constantly struggles to live up to his dead mentor's legacy, whose daughter Akiko becomes his landlady, and she has the personality of a young child.
それってガイアメモリー？
Then we have Philip. He's the right side, and he searches for useful information and does a lot of research involving keywords to solve cases. He's definitely not what he seems, and his story has an excellent twist. Kamen Rider Double featured some excellent lead protagonists that are very easy to root for.
この日を待っていた。
I like
The
that
show
hitcher
also
belt.
features Ryu, also
The
known
hitching
as
device.
Axel, who's a cool rider that's based around speed, and he eventually falls in love with Akiko. We also have Museum, one of the most memorable and interesting evil organizations in the history of Tokyo.
Museum.
This show has several loving nods to the creator of Kamen Rider, Shotaro Ishinomori, including Shotaro Hidari having the same name, the green and black color scheme reminiscent of the Showa era,
I didn't notice
and
that
Kamen
the
Rider
same name.
Skull, a reference to the Skullman manga that Ishinomori created
nice
so many years
tribute.
prior.
Nice homage.
This was the first Kamen Rider series to use the term Kamen Rider in English letters on the logo and in marketing, because before this, it was always Masked Rider. Double will always be remembered as a cool, fresh, and well-written entry into the franchise. "2010 brought us Eiji, also known as Kamen Rider Oz, a nomad with a tragic past who dresses like a hobo and has a not-so-secret obsession with underwear.
This is wild.
Eiji encounters Ankh, the arm of a greed, which is a creature made of metals that feed on the desires of humans, played by Ryosuke Miura, who also played on a show called Caesar X, and the charisma and the interactions between Eiji and Ankh would be a standout of the season.
Man.
Our two leads encounter Kogami-san, who assists them by providing various resources and equipment, but clearly he has ulterior motives, and this guy also loves to say, "Happy birthday." Kamen Rider Oz also features Kamen Rider Birth, an incredibly unique rider with multiple users, who's themed around capsule toys.
That's pretty impressive. Whoa.
One thing that's really unique about Oz is that he's able to mix and match metals to combine different forms, but he becomes really cool and powerful when he combines three of the same type.
They just stepping it up every season.
This show is critically and commercially successful, and Oz would continue the streak of excellent Kamen Rider seasons at the time.
They all come together.
2011 would see the release of a huge team-up movie in Oz, Dino, All Riders, Let's Go Kamen Riders.
Let's Go Kamen Riders.
This movie, of course, featured Oz and Dino, but it also featured the double riders of the original Kamen Rider series, plus all of the other riders throughout history. Serving as a celebration commemorating the 40th anniversary of the franchise and the 60th anniversary of Toei Company, this movie continued the tradition of fan service and crossovers.
See, I like when they hit certain anniversaries.
The fandom was also
they do the
treated
mash
to some
up and give fans what they want
from other non-Rider Toku characters like Kikaider, Inazuman, and Zubat, and a cool new form from Oz using the Imogen and Shocker medals. Appropriately, the catchphrase for the movie is "Oh the world, these are Japan's heroes," due to the large amount of legendary heroes featured here, and this movie served as a great showcase of the Kamen Rider franchise to new fans. Later on in 2011, we were introduced to one of the most unique and fresh Kamen Rider seasons of all time in Kamen Rider Foze. A 40th anniversary project themed around space and centered around the Kamen Rider Club of Amanogawa High School. Our main protagonist is Gintaro, an eccentric and charismatic new student who recently transferred and is determined to be everyone's
kind of remind me of Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yuki is Gintaro's childhood friend, and she is just as quirky and fun on screen as Gintaro, making for an excellent cast that portray their characters with enthusiasm. This season took a lot of risks in regard to theming and style, but it resulted in a very memorable season that was consistently entertaining and really fun in general.
What is that? The Nintendo DS, right?
Also released in 2011 was the game All Kamen Rider Rider Generation for the Nintendo DS system. This was a fun arcade-style beat-em-up game that also received a sequel later.
Kind of had that Pokemon game style to it. That's impressive.
In 2012, the franchise would go in yet another new direction with Wizard, a magic and fantasy-themed Rider season with
This
quite
another
a bit
one
of
on my
comedy and
list.
charm added on top of the Kamen Rider.
Another one on my list.
The main protagonist for this season is named Haruto, and he uses rings of different elements to hinge into Kamen Rider Wizard. This series also featured an incredibly likable secondary hero with a cool suit in the mayonnaise-obsessed Kosuke, also known as Kamen Rider Beast. This season also features a lot of quirky comedy, mostly delivered by Shunpei. Although this series didn't quite reach the same height as the previous few seasons,
cool.
Wizard's uniqueness created new possibilities for what could be featured in Kamen Rider. 2012 also marked the 10th anniversary of TV Asahi's Superhero Time TV
With Super
block,
Sentai.
and to celebrate, Toei released Kamen Rider and Super Sentai Superhero
That's
Tyson,
impressive.
a crossover film featuring the company's two most famous franchises.
Another one on my list.
This movie focuses primarily on Decade, Foze, Oz, Go Busters, and Go Kaiger, but the vast majority of riders and rangers throughout history are featured here. In this film, Captain Marvelous leads the Dai Zangyak fleet against all Kamen Riders, while Kamen Rider Decade leads Dai Shocker against all Sentais. This movie brought the stakes and intrigue of a heavyweight fight to the big screen and a love letter to both Kamen Rider and Super Sentai.
So they fought each other in there. I gotta see, that's another one on my list.
2013 would continue the trend of wild and fresh ideas being implemented into the Kamen Rider formula with the much-loved and very unique season, Kamen Rider Gaim. The show features dancing fruit samurai, which might sound childish on surface level, but this show actually has a
scene right there was
surprisingly dark
impressive.
tone at times,
He was fighting a lot of
depth
dudes.
and weight to the story. In the universe of Gaim, reality has become almost unbearably hard and depressing for most people, so dance troupes are formed to liven up the community, and one of these troupes is called Gaim. Kota is our main protagonist who becomes Kamen Rider Gaim, and he displays a charisma and relatability that makes it very easy to root for him.
Locks.
This show was another treat for fans of Rider versus Rider battles and infighting. And Gaim is generally remembered very fondly by most of the community, and it would be impossible to tell the story of Kamen Rider without Gaim.
Wow.
2013 would also deliver another fun-filled and action-packed team-up movie in Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and Space Sheriff Superhero Tyson Zeto. This was a sequel to the Superhero Tyson movie with the new addition of the Metal Heroes franchise.
Metal Heroes? So you got 3 franchises in one. Nice.
This movie features heroes from the 3 major Toei franchises on screen together to fight against the emerging Space Shocker in a thrilling and nostalgic celebration of Kamen Rider and all of Toei.
Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider.
In 2013, Toei and Bandai Namco released a game titled Kamen Rider Bat Ride War for the PlayStation 3. This game is considered a hack-and-slash style game and features every Heisei rider.
I love hack-and-slashes.
This game lets you take on large groups of enemies at a time during battle scenarios designed to make you feel like a powerful Kamen Rider. The success of this game would lead to several sequels over the years.
I need that game. Kamen Rider Drive.
2014 would see the release of Kamen Rider Drive, a car and police-focused season. Shinnosuke is an officer that was demoted into the Special Investigation Division, where he investigates slowdown and fight against the Roid Mutes. He hinges into Kamen Rider Drive using Belto-san and drives around in a stylish red car. Takahito Omori, one of the producers of the show, called it a tribute to Knight Rider, a car-focused show from the 1980s. The theme song for this season is sung by Mitsuru Matsuoka, who also played Kamen Rider Eternal in Double. Drive was a well-written and much-liked season that added to the Kamen Rider legacy in a positive way and kept the fandom
I
entertained.
picked a
in
few episodes
2014.
of Drive. Very fast paced, no pun intended. No pun intended.
2015 was a bit of a slow year for Kamen Rider, with the only project of note being Kamen Rider Ghost.
Interesting.
This series used themes revolving around the afterlife as our main protagonist Takeru searches for the icons that will prevent his permanent death.
Wow. So you gotta live forever, huh?
The suit designs of the season feature bold colors, elaborate helmet ornamentation, and hoodies, a look that I appreciate even today.
And this is where it gets wily.
"2016 saw the introduction of one of the most bold, colorful, and fun Rider series
Very
of all
bold.
time in Kamen Rider Heisei. Celebrating the 45th anniversary of Kamen Rider, this is a show that takes place mostly in a hospital and focuses on a group of gaming doctors that battle against the bugsters. This
Now, can
cast
you
is
put
loaded with
gaming
charm and
doctors,
personality,
bro?
especially our main protagonist, Emu.
I'm a Kamen Rider.
The suits have a really unique anime look, and almost everything has a look that you could perhaps best describe as being part anime and part retro gaming. It might sound like a strange combination, but it works really well, and the aesthetic of Xaid makes the show an incredibly memorable entry
It
into
look
the
wild,
franchise.
but it do work. I've seen a few episodes.
In 2016, the Kamen Rider fandom was also treated to a new Rider series for adults called Amazons, based on the classic Kamen Rider Amazon,
That's tight.
and streaming on Amazon Prime Video.
I
This show
gotta watch
featured
it
a
then.
distinctively
I
more
got
violent
Prime.
style compared with the mainline series, something that this
Whoa.
show shares with the original. In fact, there's a lot of things from the show that I just can't show you on YouTube, because if I did, Kane Janai. This show featured only 12 episodes, but would get renewed for a second season. This series brought new attention to the classic Kamen Rider Amazon series, as well as attention to the Kamen Rider franchise as a whole, due to how prevalent Amazon Prime Video is throughout the world.
I gotta see this since I know it's on Prime. Prime and Tubi got a lot of Kamen Rider seasons and episodes.
2017 saw the debut of a cool new science and math themed Rider in Kamen Rider Build. After an item called the Pandora's Box was discovered on Mars, there was an event called the Skywall disaster that split Japan into 3 warring territories, Toto, Hokuto, and Seto, and this also created monsters called Smash. In order to deal with the fallout of this event and to defeat Smash, the Toto government enlists help from our main protagonist, Sento. Sento is unquestionably a genius who hinges into Kamen Rider Build.
Kamen Rider
This
Build.
series also features Ryuga, also known as Crossze, as a captivating secondary rider with a well-written story, as well as Ivorto, an alien that wants to assimilate all of humanity. Due to Build's unique world building, interesting characters, and great story, this show has remained as one of the most loved and well-remembered series in Kamen Rider history.
Let's see what we got next. What is this?
2018 brought us the final season of the
Zio.
Heisei era and the first anniversary season since Decade 10 years prior in Kamen Rider Zio. This year's show is themed around time and time travel. Our main protagonist Sogo is destined to become Oma King Zio, a ruthless tyrant of the future. To prevent this, Gaze goes back in time to kill Zio, but a woman named Tsukuyomi has also gone back to protect Sogo. As this is an anniversary season, we're treated to a lot of throwback riders and various crossovers that longtime fans will appreciate.
That's tight.
Including
I like
grotesque
that.
versions of the riders that oppose our heroes.
I can see the riders inside the suits.
Zio was a love letter of a season written to the Kamen Rider franchise as a whole.
I love these love letters and I love these movies to the fans, man. That's how you do it.
Before the
Need
Heisei
to take
era
notes,
officially
Star
came
Wars,
to a
Marvel,
close,
and DC.
Toei released Heisei Generations Forever, a huge celebration of the entire Heisei era meant to appeal to fans both young and old.
See, that's cool.
This movie is
that's
stuffed
another
with
one on
fan
my
service
list.
related to every one of the Heisei riders, and they each get a healthy amount of time to shine. The entirety of the Heisei era leads up to this point in a triumphant and thrilling climax, and this project marks the final Rider project before the next era.
The next one is 01. That starts a new era.
2019 brought with it the Reiwa era and Kamen Rider 01. This show follows Aruto Hiden.
This is when I came back into Kamen Rider.
Inherits a company called Hiden Intelligence from his grandfather. Hiden Intelligence makes human gears, which are AI-powered robots that resemble humans. Eventually, Aruto encounters MetsubouJinrai.net, who are rogue human gears led by Kamen Rider Horobi, and they intend to bring about the extinction of humans by hacking and corrupting other human gears.
私は技術顧問の刃優愛。そして捜査官の
不破勇だ。
This show features Yaiba and Fua from the organization AIMS, also known as Kamen Riders Valkyrie and Vulcan.
I about to say,
and
they
their
got Kamen
goals
Rider
aren't
suits
always
too.
the same as Aruto's or even each other's, leading to a really interesting story with explosive conflict.
Wow.
Jump to the sky turns to a rider kick.
This show asks if AI is a good or bad thing, a question that's increasingly more relevant in today's world. And we would come to discover that there isn't necessarily a clear black and white answer to this.
Which is how the real world works when it comes to AI.
Detailed and dynamic-looking suit designs, as well as action that I consider very anime-like in general. This is a season that's a treat for the eyes. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the production of this series was cut short toward the end, resulting in a rushed final act of
See, I didn't know
and a
this.
change in
I
tone
didn't know
for the
that.
next franchise entry.
One heck of a show, though. Kamen Rider
In
Saber.
2020, after the pandemic, with 01's production being cut short and most people staying at home, it was decided that the next Kamen Rider season would have a warmer and more lighthearted tone. This resulted in 2020's Kamen Rider Saber, a fun and whimsical take on the Kamen Rider formula that features a more lighthearted tone and even an outro dance number, which was a first of the franchise. Our main protagonist is a novelist named Toma, who was quite possibly the most stylish rider since Shotaro Hidari of Kamen Rider Double.
Oh, that's cool.
2020 was a year where the fans needed some lighthearted fun in their life, and Saber delivered on that.
That's good. Because I'm telling you, during the pandemic, it was a crazy time, man. People needed some lighthearted stuff. This is a game?
In 2020, we were also treated to a brand new Kamen Rider game
Man, that's
for PlayStation
cool.
4 and Nintendo Switch called Kamen Rider Memory of Heroes. This game features 01 teaming up with Double and O's in an original new Kamen Rider adventure that allowed fans to henshin, fight bosses, and switch between the awesome forms that these riders possess. Players could acquire new abilities from the enemies they defeat, as well as upgrade their stats.
And just the movement and everything, they really did upgrades with the games.
2020. Going into early 2021, we got Saber and Zenkaiger
Superhero
Superhero
Senkai.
Senki, a crossover movie project between Saber and Zenkaiger
Oh, wow.
to celebrate Kamen Rider's 50th anniversary and Super Sentai's 45th anniversary. The catchphrase for this movie is straightforward heroes half of the century.
I need to see this movie, too. I need to see
During
it
the
now.
events of the movie, riders end up in the Zenkai world, and the Zenkaigers, other than Juran, end up in the Saber world, and eventually they team up together as you would expect.
Oh.
This movie served as an excellent anniversary celebration for fans of both franchises. Also in 2021, we got Kamen Rider Revice. Serving as the 50th anniversary project of the franchise, Revice is a story about Ikki and his inner demon, Vice, who are tandem riders that become Kamen Rider Revice. Ikki's family runs a bathhouse together, and his siblings also become riders as they use
Whoa.
V-stamps to henshin and fight against the Deadmans. Revice brought a new style and vibe into the franchise, as well as some unique color choices for the riders, and the unique aspects of the show make it memorable within the history of Kamen Rider.
Geeks. America love
brought
geeks.
with it an absolute banger of a Kamen Rider season.
People
in Kamen
love
Rider
geeks.
Beats. This series focuses on a battle royale with supporters and organizers from the future called the Desire Grand Prix. The winner of this battle royale will have their deepest desire granted to them, so the stakes are really high and the conflict is really interesting. Our main protagonist is Ace Yukio, who is the definition of being cool. We also have the famous social media star Neon, also known as Nago, who has a really great story arc, and she's very easy to root for.
She's doing TikTok dances.
And then we have Keiwa, a happy-go-lucky character that goes through an intense story arc that turns him into a vengeful force of nature. This entry into the Kamen Rider franchise featured a great story, a great cast, and superb action scenes. Geats was so successful that it even received a Blu-ray release in America.
I'm telling you, Americans love Geats.
2022 also gave us the reimagining
of the
legendary Kamen Rider.
I got recommended this Black Sun. I heard this on Amazon.
And politically charged take on the classic series that took its own liberties with the source material. This series celebrates the 35th anniversary of Kamen Rider Black, serving as an example of just how iconic and legendary that series was. And did I mention it's really bloody? There's a lot from this show that I can't even show you on YouTube.
Wow. Might do a reaction to that too.
2022 also gave us the direct anime sequel to Kamen Rider Double in Futo Pi. This
Wow.
series follows Shotaro and Philip as they solve crimes and do Kamen Rider things in a post-museum world. Double is extremely popular, and the success of Futo Pi raises hopes that maybe someday the fandom will be treated to anime adaptations.
We
of
need
Kamen
more
Rider series.
anime.
And this show is even getting a film
More
release
anime.
this coming November.
More anime of Kamen Rider, I agree. Oh.
In 2022, we also got the O's 10th anniversary movie, the 10th Core Medal of Fate, in which Eiji's story would come to an end, and many fans were quite unhappy about how it ended. I've had people tell me in the comments that in Japan people were crying in the theaters. Regardless of how you feel, this was a historically significant Kamen Rider project.
That's pretty powerful.
2023 brought us Kamen Rider Gotchard, a lighthearted and fun rider season focusing on Hotaro Ichinose, also known as Kamen Rider Gotchard. This series brought with it a new alchemy theme and a return to cards being used by the riders, in addition to fun creatures called Kemis. This story explores the lives of Hotaro and his friend Rin Kudo as they seek to capture the Kemis. After some more serious projects, Gotchard was a season that had a few shortcomings in terms of story beats and character development, but historically the franchise tends to ebb and flow between lighthearted, kid-friendly seasons and darker seasons with more mature stories. Gotchard leans more towards being a kid-friendly season, like I just described.
It's nothing wrong with kid-friendly.
Necessarily a bad thing,
no.
And some fans might even view it as a positive.
Yeah. Don't need to be dark all the time. It's a big franchise. You need to spread it around for everybody.
2023 also gave us the incredibly stylish love letter to the original Kamen Rider series in the form of Shin Kamen Rider.
I need to see that too.
To celebrate the franchise's 50th anniversary. This movie set out to take everything that made the original series great and dial it up to 11.
I want to see that, man. That's a lot of catching up I need to do.
The look, tone, style, and music are all faithfully recreated here, with a new layer of flair and high production values that only time and a large budget can provide. This movie tells a story that's a combination of several story beats from throughout the original series, and these elements are all stitched together in a really entertaining way. It's obvious that the people involved in making this movie had a ton of love for the franchise, and they put their hearts into making it.
You can tell.
And now, in 2024, at the time of making this video, we finally have a look at the next rider coming up in Kamen Rider Gav, a snack-themed rider whose catchphrase is, "Sweets and evil, I'll eat them up." He has a unique purple, blue, and yellow color scheme, along with some other cool-looking forms. And if history is any indicator, this will be another big year for Kamen Rider.
Well, we made it, ladies and gentlemen. But that was a dope journey.
For 50 years, the Kamen Rider franchise has given us some amazing characters, interesting stories, jaw-dropping action, and heart-wrenching drama. We've seen hundreds of riders fight for what they believe in or who they care about, tons of evil organizations be brought to justice, and we've been lucky enough to enjoy this amazingly weird and wonderful world of triumph called Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider.
Thanks for taking a trip with me through the history of this awesome
That was a
franchise.
fun trip.
I'd love to hear what your favorite Kamen Rider moment is in the comments.
I
and
can't pick
if you
one.
enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it a lot if you would smack the out of that like button. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for making the video, brother. That was a dope one, man. Dope journey. Hope you enjoyed that journey too. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was a gigantic overload of history lesson when it comes to Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider, and if you look at it, even though some seasons didn't do so good, it was still consistent and the shows were still good. This is just a very powerful toy franchise, man, that people love. And if you look at Power Rangers right now, Power Rangers is done in the US, but Kamen Rider is still going strong. And you want to know why? Because the writers, the producers, the directors, they're listening to the fans. Take note, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. That's all I got to say. Take notes. You guys let me know what you think. Let me know what was your favorite Kamen Rider series and movie. And we're going to be back for the next one. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit that notification bell. Because when you hit that bell, it makes your boy Fatal J feel oh so good and oh so swell. And I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Ninja Vanish.
The time for talking is over. It's time to push buttons.
Yo, 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 yo.